And welcome to the Monday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who is a much better limbo dancer than Joey Barton. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Is that Joey's newest explanation for why he went to ground so readily?
Yeah, he's in the early stages of limbo dancer training.
I see. Yeah. In fact, that's actually not what we read his Twitter feed earlier in response to the mockery that he's gotten for going down and I would say feigning injury for a clash in their FA Cup match.
Yeah.
He basically said that there was contact, that I was hit. He
said he was trying to get back around the front of the player by ducking under his arm, and in ducking under his arm, the guy stuck his arm out and hit him in the head, and he went down. That is not factually correct. I mean, it's factually correct, but it's not really what happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then he also posted video of him getting smashed later. I think either later or earlier in the game, I'm not sure which, but he posted two different videos of that, as if that makes up for, acting a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, there was contact, to be fair. He does get hit a little bit in the head.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not enough to send a player to the ground, and it's certainly not enough to send a player to the ground who has tweeted publicly about people acting and rolling on the ground and pretending as though they've been hurt and how they should be banned from the sport.
So if you haven't seen this is from FA Cup action over the weekend. It's Burnley losing to Lincoln City in the FA Cup. Lincoln City, the Imps, are now in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. It's a huge, giant killing, right? Burnley are a Premier League team. And there was a bit of a bit of pushing and shoving between Joey Barton and I think it's Matt Reed, really big number 9 for Lincoln. He looks like a proper non-league striker, put it that way. I'm surprised he's playing as high as that, right?
I can't remember if he's the one who said he's never eaten a vegetable before, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was. There's one of them who said he's never eaten a vegetable and he was going to eat 9 chicken nuggets before the match. So make of that what you will.
But Joey Barton then gets to stamp it on this guy's ankles, then tries to go under his arm around the back of him, and I want to say there is literal physical contact.
Yeah, you can see his hair go up in the air.
Yeah, but there's no hard physical contact. Not enough for Joey Barton to roll around on the floor trying to get the guy a card, right?
Well, I'll say this: the dude is huge, and so there is a chance that in just adjusting his arm a little bit. I mean, and taking it.
Is he like the guy who's in Deadpool? Who's the metal guy in
Colossus?
Deadpool? Yeah. That guy's he's big, but he's not Colossus.
No, but you can see how he could say that taking an elbow to the head. Even if it's kind of not an intentional elbow, it's still moving backwards, he's still moving forwards. You can see the contact there. But I think it's that he definitely seems to try to then sell it as though it was this vicious blow as opposed to ow, you just elbowed me. That's not cool. There's definitely a line between a legitimate reaction and a dramatic reaction. And I think Joey Barton, the needle ticks over into dramatic.
All right. Lincoln win 1-0. Right. Lincoln will play Arsenal in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Big stuff. The other big news in the draw was Chelsea Man United is the other quarterfinal.
Lovely. Yeah? It should be fun.
Yeah, it could have been Wolves Man United. We would have had a TSS showdown. Co-host v co-host for FA Cup glory.
It's been a while. The last time I remember that, I think it was Wolves ending Man United's unbeaten run.
Yes, Sylvain Ebanks-Blake. I remember I was in your apartment and I called Ebanks-Blake a beautiful man.
Oh, is that when it happened? Because I remember you calling to tell me it had happened, and I was less than thrilled.
Maybe they've played since.
Yeah, maybe they have. Or maybe it's just a continuous theme of United losing to Wolverhampton.
Here's to it happening again.
And I would bet significant amounts of money that United do not get the result against Chelsea.
Really? We'll talk about that more when the time comes.
We can. It's only because Jose Mourinho publicly said he does not want to advance in all competitions. So I feel like there's a chance, because he wants to focus on the Premier League, he doesn't want 3 different cup competitions in there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the strongest Man United team against Chelsea.
Well, another team acting like they don't want to advance in all competitions is the US men's national team under
good segue.
20s.
Yeah.
So as previewed on Friday's show, the US opened World Cup qualifying the CONCACAF Championship down in Costa Rica against Panama. It was the first group stage game. The US lost 1-0. It's being called one of the worst performances by a US youth national team of all time. And the reason isn't just the result, because Panama are a decent team, right? But US lost 1-0. Panama only had 10 men for 70 minutes of this game almost. The US put out...
I think more than that. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure 17th minute is when the red card occurred.
Right, yes. The US did not really create anything except for occasional long balls and desperate crosses, and it was just all around a depressing performance.
Absolutely.
We're going to sort of do what can only be called a post-mortem on the US's 1-0 loss, and then we'll look ahead to the next group stage game, which is against Haiti on Tuesday night at 5:30. That hope could still be alive there.
Sure.
So things are going to get low, people, but it's going to come back up towards the end.
All right. So where should we start with this game then?
Let's start with Tab Ramos' lineup. Okay. So in the previous show, we talked about Will Parchman from Top Draw Soccer talked about how he did not want to see Eric Palmer-Brown playing in defensive midfield instead of at centre-back.
Right.
And that's exactly what we got.
Right. Exactly. And then I think you also mentioned Tyler Adams in that interview. You brought him up.
Yes.
And then there
if
was
only
a
because I'm a
discussion.
big fan. I'm a big Tyler Adams fan.
Yeah. And similarly, it was sort of like, well, we don't want to see him playing attacking midfield. That might not be the best idea. And that's exactly where he was deployed in this game. So it was two players played out of position, and I think they weren't the only ones. I think you had a couple players who were doing new jobs on the day.
Well, Danny Acosta has never played left back at any level except in practice, so there's that.
And then on top of that, I mean, now there's some, you can always disagree about tactics and what the actual formation is, but from where I was sitting, I saw the U.S. playing up until the second half when they just kind of threw some subs on and went very attacking-ish. It was a 4-2-3-1 is what I saw on the field.
Yeah, same here.
And Will Parchman publicly said that's the last formation they should be playing in this game.
Publicly on the Total Soccer Show.
Yeah, But okay, you're right. The publicly isn't the emphasizer. It's more so that he was very specific in the one formation they shouldn't be playing is a 4-2-3-1. They don't have the personnel and they don't have the training. They haven't taken the time to get used to that system.
Yeah.
They won't be able to execute it properly.
So before we get to the goal and the red card, I think both of those are worth talking about. I'd like to talk about why that 4-2-3-1 did not work against Panama. And we can start listing reasons. I'll invite you to go first.
Well, I'll say, so Will's concern was that basically he wasn't sure if the United States had the wide players that could execute what's necessary in a 4-2-3-1 of getting forward but getting back and contributing defensively. I think you saw that on the day, that it wasn't great crossing, it wasn't great defensive work. There was a lot of standoffishness from U.S. players out wide.
I would say Brooks Lennon did put in some really good crosses from the right? He looked a lively, exciting player. Marlon Fossey then overlapping him from right back also looked lively, getting forward.
Yeah, but weren't most of those in the second half? Or am I wrong?
There were a couple of crosses in the first half as well. It's more the defensive side that Brooks Lennon was lacking.
Correct. So I think that's part of it. I think, as you mentioned, playing Tyler Adams out of position and playing Eric Palmer-Brown out of position, you could see the frustration with both of them because both, I think Eric Palmer-Brown had to take a couple extra touches every single time.
Yeah,
not every single time, but most of the time.
It always looked like the ball was being sucked into him, so he never fully had control of it, and then he had to reset himself. Where a more natural sort of pivot type player would just move that ball along quickly, right?
Yeah, and then it's also because I think you could see at times he doesn't have that confidence born of playing that position day in and day out.
Yeah.
That he's not going to trust himself to thread that needle, to thread that pass, and especially because he's usually a center back. If you're a center back and you give the ball away, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So I think he's not used to kind of playing high-risk passes and having it not immediately lead to a goal. So maybe there's a little bit of trepidation about trying to do that when he's playing in defensive midfield.
It's the difference between someone who will just immediately sweep the ball out wide and someone who will stop, look around, double check, then play the ball, right? And suddenly the US is playing very, very slowly.
And then you have Tyler Adams, who, grain of salt here because he's playing a decent chunk of that first half with a significant injury.
Yeah.
He comes off, basically he's the one that gets hit for that challenge that leads to the red card.
Simon gets a red card for essentially raking his foot. It's a hard initial contact against Tyler Adams' shin. Then Simon sort of scrapes his cleat down the rest of Tyler Adams' shin. I mean, he rolls his ankle over, gets his cleats right in there. I'm surprised that Adams played on. I wasn't surprised to see him on crutches in the second half.
Subbed out late in the first half, comes back out of the tunnel on crutches, has since, according to Jesse Marsh of the New York Red Bulls, has had a scan, is going to be out probably 1 to 2 weeks. So that seems like a tournament done for him.
Yep, and so we didn't get to see him in his best position because when we saw Tyler Adams trying to be the farthest forward midfielder, essentially the number 10, we saw a guy who was not suited to that role. I saw a guy who could not find any space between the Panama defense, the back four, and the Panama midfield four, right?
Yeah.
They did 2 lines, and we couldn't break them down.
No, and a big part of that is I imagine it's akin to if you've been playing a different position and suddenly you're thrust into that role, that you kind of know the basics of it. And that's what I saw, was a lot of U.S. players knowing the basics of what they were supposed to be doing. So Tyler Adams knows, I'm supposed to be between 2 defenders, I'm supposed to be trying to find space in between.
Yep.
And he's doing that, for sure. But what he's doing is basically running in between 2 guys and then running in between 2 more guys. But it's not really actual space.
Yeah.
And he's not really changing the direction. He's not really changing the pace. It's sort of run at pace into here, then run at pace into here, then run, and it's kind of the same thing every single time, which again points to a guy who doesn't really have that creative awareness and that attacking creative midfielder ability to figure out they're in 2 banks of 4. I got to dart out wide and have somebody else come in, or I got to kind of do other things. And what he ends up doing is dropping back between the 2 center backs to pick up the ball. And that's kind of the sign of, he's more used to playing that defensive midfield. Yeah,
and
exactly.
the most frustrating thing to me in all this is that the way we see that Panama lined up with the 2 banks of 4, the quick you were talking about when we were watching, the best way to break that down is to move the ball quickly from left to right, from left to right, swing it back and forth. But because Eric Palmer-Brown...
Quickly to clarify, it's because basically if they're in those banks of 4, they're condensed, and what you want to do is if you spread it from left to right quickly, you stretch them out and suddenly those gaps appear.
Yeah, and they get more porous and you put balls through those holes and like in on goal. Exactly. Because Tyler Adams can't find any of that space in the middle. Eric Palmer-Brown's not able to move the ball quickly left and right. If we just moved Eric Palmer-Brown into the back 4, moved Tyler Adams back to where Eric Palmer-Brown could be, and had basically a more number 10 type attacking midfielder in the Tyler Adams spot, all of a sudden this all makes a lot more sense.
Right. And so, but with that, and this gets into the goal itself, and I know we need to get there. But
the goal that US did not score.
Exactly, the goal that they conceded, that I would argue comes about from a little bit of hesitation again. And I think in this approach that you're talking about, the swinging it left to right, again, you could see that sort of everyone's thinking. And as we've talked about, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you don't really want to have to overthink in soccer. And what we would see is, say it's on the left-hand side and it starts to be swung around. Every player is taking 4 touches, or they're taking a touch and then they're dribbling a little bit and then they're passing the ball. Yeah, and so basically the point of that big switch and the kind of dramatic shift from left to right and back and forth is that you're supposed to throw the defense into disarray. But if you're giving them plenty of time to move with you slowly, and so we switch it to the right-hand side, good stuff. Their entire team is here now too. Okay, let's go back to the left, but first everyone take 5 touches. It completely defeats the purpose of that tactic. Yeah, and so then you go into the goal, and you can just see that little bit of I don't really want to be the one to make the mistake. I don't really want to be the one to commit. I don't want to be at fault. And because nobody wants to be responsible, everyone is responsible, basically.
There are a lot of fingers to be pointed, right?
So let's talk about it then.
Okay, so it's I can't remember the exact minute, but it's between the 30th and 40th minute.
I think it's late in the first half, maybe 40 something. Yeah.
All right, so the US is a man up on Panama, but has been unable to break Panama down in any meaningful way at all. Panama mount a kind of semi-rare attack. Eric Palmer-Brown does not close down the number 9 fast enough. He has time to look up and ping a ball out left to Avila, right? Avila is sort of on the left wing, marked by Marlon Fossey. It's not like an amazing ball. It's a ball over the top that doesn't really put him in on goal or anything. Right. Avila brings it down, right? Still no danger at this point.
Right.
Okay, Marlon Fossey's with him. Avila turns around, essentially, just coming back around.
Turns away, basically does a U-turn away from goal.
Yes, all right, and he's working his way back around. The left back, I think, tricks Brooks Lennon into thinking he's making an overlapping run.
The Panamanian left back.
Left back, yeah. So Brooks Lennon then goes outside. There's a little gap then for Avila to take one step, turn, and just hopefully swing his foot and hope it might be going at goal.
Right.
It brushes Foss's thigh, I believe, takes a deflection, confuses Jonathan Klinsmann in goal, 1-0 Panama.
Right. And, I mean, when you watch this goal, it's a very pretty goal. Even with that deflection, it looks very pretty. But if you watch it again, you will notice from the time that ball is played in and Avila settles it, he never looks up. He looks up, but he never looks at goal. He has no idea where he is in relation to goal. I mean, I guess he knows positionally, but he's just trying a shot. It's a hopeful attempt.
Because why not, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't point to he's really, really clever and he's figured out how to kind of manipulate the U.S. defense. It's just more he gets an opportunity and he takes it. But he gets an opportunity, I think, because Marlon Fossey doesn't want to concede a penalty, so he's not going to be overly aggressive in the box, which is okay-ish. But you got to put a little bit of physicality into it. You got to at least hassle
so
them
Marlon Fossey could have been tougher, definitely. But I almost, even though it actually comes off his deflection, it's his man that scores. I kind of feel like Brooks Lennon has more defensive blame here.
I mean, first of all, he's fooled by that lack of a run, essentially. And then he goes outside. Then he tries to get back in. But when he tries to get back in, he too is scared about conceding a penalty. So if you watch the goal, I mean, he has his hands in the air in that sort of I'm not making contact. And that's where his hands are when that shot goes off. So he's not really making that full concerted effort to get back in there and double team defensively. He's just sort of I don't want to do anything wrong, so I'm just going to be here.
And also, I want to make clear why I'm sort of blaming Brooks Lennon here. I know it's hard to be blaming teenagers, right? Charles Berman, his match report, wrote this, that it feels really hard to be writing about 19-year-olds saying, he did this wrong, he did that wrong, because they're youth players and that's kind of what they do. But at the same time, we have to point out why this goal happened, right? Okay, so if Brooks Lennon had just stayed inside, then when Avila starts to cut backwards, his path to goal would have been blocked just by Brooks Lennon's presence. But because Brooks Lennon runs to the wing, thinking he's stopping the 2-on-1 overlap, he opens up that space. And to me, that is just an example of defensive inexperience, right? Because you're doing what you've been told to do, which is track the left back, right? It's just in this situation that shouldn't be the number one priority. The number one priority should be block Avia's path to goal.
But I mean, but it's so we've touched on the two
doing
of them.
the right thing, but at the wrong time.
Yeah. But it's the two of them are definitely like shoulder some of the responsibility. But it's worth noting that this is not just that it's not as though Panama hoofed this ball 70 yards and it just kind of happens to come down. This comes from Panama possessing and getting the ball forward and passing it around a little bit and then picking out this ball and having it crossed over and then it being settled. And in that time, you would think, as I joked about when we watched this goal, you would think it was the U.S. who were man down because they're so standoffish and they're backing off and they're trying to play contained. No one is putting anybody under consistent pressure. No one is stepping to the ball. And that's where you're right. I don't want to criticize teenagers, so I'll criticize Tab Ramos.
He's a grown man.
Who's the one who should be making the proactive substitutions to get more attacking players on to take the game to Panama. He should be encouraging his players to step because Panama are man down. Make them run. Make them do the work. Don't give them time to rest and settle and pick their spots. Put them under pressure. And it just seemed like the U.S. was still in this very reactive, Panama are the one good opponent we have, so we don't want to give up too much too quickly, so let's all just sit back a little bit. And that affords them the time and the opportunity to get a goal.
Would you agree that maybe just Ramos was much too conservative with his lineup? Putting a centre-back in Eric Palmer-Brown in central midfield, playing like Tyler Adams as your most sort of farthest forward midfield player when really he's a deep-lying playmaker. It just seemed like maybe we were hoping to counter-attack Panama, not realising that we might be the better team. So maybe we should have a plan for we're just going to have the ball the whole time and try and make something happen.
And I think that's definitely a fair point, especially because, as you pointed out, there were a couple different times when the United States did work hard and did win the ball back. And it was good work there, but they're so focused on doing that quick transition counter that they just immediately pass the ball back to Panama because they're so focused on get it forward. There
was that great one, I think it was with Ebobisse, or Ebobisse, I'm not sure if we pronounce the A on the end or not, the E is an A. When he sort of wins it back and quickly, he tries to just force a quick pass in front of De La Torre, but it's way too hard and way off and way too fast. It's almost like this quick transition is what's been drilled in, and it wasn't going to work in this instant because not least because Panama have so many defensive players back. Right? There's no space to counterattack into.
Yeah, and so I do want to get to at least some of the positives that we can find. There are a few in an otherwise very bad game, but I think part of my frustration with this U.S. team is that kind of consistently we watch these U17, U20, U23 teams with this expectation of oh man, this is the time. They've got this talent. We know them from the scouting network. We know them from watching them. We know them from seeing them at City Stadium. So, two of these guys, three of these guys were there.
Was there,
So as was Tyler Adams. So we have some familiarity and it's exciting. And so then to see them go out and just have such, I would argue, an ineffective game plan, it's very disappointing.
You could argue that they were set up to fail. You think Tyler Adams played in an advanced role. Eric Palmer-Brown played in midfield when he's a centre-back. Even, and I want to say this, Brooks Lennon, I know I was hard on him, he was the US's most effective player going forward. He put in maybe 3 or 4 really good crosses with his right foot from the right. On the second half, he's on the left. He even puts in a couple good crosses with his left and 1 or 2 with his right. So he was a real danger, right, going forward. But as Will Parchman said, we don't have the personnel for the defensive side of a 4-2-3-1. That's where you saw Brooks Lennon get caught out. He was asked to do the defensive job that maybe you're not asked to do in a 4-3-3. You know what I mean? This is not a Jose Mourinho winger type performance.
No, and then you look at the adjustments because maybe that wasn't working so well. The second half, the U.S., we really tried, and it seems like they go to a 3-3-4 almost, or something like that. It's
definitely 3 at the back. It ends up being Justin Glad. It ends up being Marlon Fossey.
And I think... and it ends up being Eric Palmer-Brown, who drops into centre back at that point.
Yeah, so we end up with 3 in the back, not sure in midfield, and then just a bunch of dudes at front. Because for the last
all standing
10 minutes, we're just there's no attempt to play through the middle. There's just bang some balls in the box, hope that Jeremy Ebobisse can knock something down, or Justin Glad can head something across goal, and we never quite carve out a proper chance.
And I think this is why Daryl Grove is an astute watcher of the Soccers.
Is that right? I'm interested in this part.
Because there was the Ebobisse header that goes off the crossbar.
Yes.
Good chance
from a Brooks Lennon cross.
There's one late in the second half that I think is it comes back in. He gets a good one-time shot, and the Panamanian keeper does really well to not only save it but hold it. And those are good chances, and that's worth praising. But then you pointed out both of those chances came from crosses or from going out wide and bringing it back in. But it's not sustained possession, and it's not sustained possession through the middle and creating good full chances. It's very intermittent. And so I think that like Ebobisse, maybe if he's a little more polished, if he has a little more time professionally, he finishes those. Yeah. But he doesn't because, as we've said, he's a teenager, he's a youngster, he's doing what he can.
Didn't you read a thing about basically that all the talent is there, but this guy needs some coaching?
Yeah, it was the MLS Soccer write-up, and it was basically like you could see how like the raw talent there, and Portland fans should be very excited for when he gets, I think the term was proper coaching. Make of that what you will.
Well, professional level coaching, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it said proper coaching. I think the implication being that he's not getting that right now.
Okay.
But I do want to say, before we move into the positives, my final thing that's kind of negative is just that you and I have talked before about how it can be really difficult to play against a team that is a man down because you then all of a sudden, like if you're playing a 4-4-2 versus a 4-4-2, you know who you're supposed to be marking. But suddenly if that team is a man down, you have to kind of change and like, wait, hold on, is he my responsibility or is he yours?
Yeah.
And you have to adjust
Panama
to it.
4-4-1, basically.
Right. And you have to adjust to it. But I think a big part, and I know people don't like it when we talk about our amateur soccer experience, but that's what I can go with. And I can say that a lot of times it's sort of we're not sure if we're the better team. And so a lot of it then is, okay, they're the better team. We're going to let them have the ball and figure out what we need to do. And I think the U.S. here, we're doing that. They were basically like, we don't want to take the game to them because we're not sure what our responsibilities are now. Yeah. So let's all stand off. And that's kind of laughable to me.
To me, it goes back to the game plan. It's like from what I've heard Tab Ramos say, the game plan is we win the ball and we counter quickly. There seemed to be no plan for we're the team with the ball.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And maybe that makes sense. If you're the US and you're looking to beat Brazil or Portugal or someone who's definitely better than you, maybe that makes sense. When you go up against like Haiti and St. Kitts, as we're about to, I think there then has to be a plan that we're going to have the ball and here's what we're going to do. And I think the problem for the US is those games somewhere in the middle. Right? We've had trouble against Panama in this past game.
Yep.
I think we had trouble against Honduras in World Cup qualifying. Olympic qualifying.
Yeah.
So I think it's those games where you're not sure if you're the best team or the worst team.
Myanmar, right?
And you adopt, in the U20 World Cup, and you adopt this kind of counter-attacking approach against a team that are like, no, we're the counter-attacking team. You're supposed to be better.
We can't both counter-attack.
Yeah.
so no, I completely agree, and I hope that the United States is able to adjust its tactics a little bit. We know that they have to finish second to get to continue qualification.
Yep.
Seems like there's a decent chance of a win against St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's the final game. Up next is Tuesday night, 5:30 Eastern on Univision Deportes and on Facebook Live via the CONCACAF channel. It's Haiti.
Right.
So we took a look at Haiti.
5-1, yeah.
Yeah, Haiti beat St. Kitts 5-1, but didn't do anything incredible in doing so. It mostly looked like a lot of St. Kitts defensive disasters.
Yes.
Like the first goal is essentially a St. Kitts defender gives an alley-oop to the guy that finishes on the line.
Yeah, and then wasn't there one where he like tries to do a pullback?
Yeah, the centre back tries a drag back and then misses the ball, so a Haiti striker can run on through.
Eric Palmer-Brown wouldn't do that.
No, he wouldn't, especially not if he was playing centre back.
No.
Can we pick out some other positives then? Because there were at least tiny glimpses, especially as guys who maybe haven't seen the U20s as much. And so, like for example, I was impressed with Brooks Lennon's crossing. Right? Brooks Lennon, for those who don't know, is a Liverpool FC player. He's on loan at Real Salt Lake right now, so you might see him in MLS this season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one to be positive about. I think even though Marlon Fossey, we talked about, kind of at fault for the goal, I was really impressed with him overall.
Yes.
And I know this sounds like a little bit goofy, given that he was the one who was directly marking the player who scores the goal. And Will Parchman said, like, he's a very good attacking fullback. We don't know about how he is defensively. I thought other than that moment, he looked good defensively. That he did a good job of tracking back. He made he took the smart angles and the smart approach to shut things down and to do it in a very, like, smart defensive way. Whereas Acosta, playing at right back.
Left back.
Should be a right back, playing at left back.
Should be a midfielder. That's where he's supposed to play.
We would see him like consistently make a mistake and then make up for it. But a lot of that makeup was based on his natural athleticism, where he would give the ball away, sprint back, and block the cross.
There were 3 or 4 of those, right? Which is ultimately like a wash, right? Ultimately, it just ends up net, not zero, not positive, not negative, not positive, but against a better opponent. Like maybe if we play Mexico or Honduras, that could be trouble.
Yeah, exactly. But what I mean there is that it's also that like Acosta is making up for something, and whereas Fossey, I think, was being like not having to do that, basically. That he was making the smart runs, that he was doing the smart defensive positioning to not have to do that last-gasp, desperate defending.
Yeah. You could even argue that he does get a block on the goal. It's just that unfortunately, that block...
very partial block, yeah.
Justin Glad's performance, I thought, was really good, playing centre-back. Another Real Salt Lake player. I thought he looked kind of nice and aggressive and winning things. And he was willing to take the game to Panama in the final 10 minutes or so. I've got to go one negative. We've had, I assume, a long time to practice set pieces.
Yep.
The first two corners, Sebastian Saucedo just tries to drive them in low, and they're both cleared so easily by Panama. It's kind of laughable.
And I'll say, it could just be maybe the field is bad, or I don't know what. But I mean, they come in pretty quick succession, if not one right after the other. Those two corners, and
it's in the first 3 minutes.
I mean, it is the exact same spot, so it feels as though it's you've just been told you have to do this, and it's but there's a guy there. I don't care, do it. It's
it mirrors the tactical approach, which is we're going to counter-attack and we're going to be fast, but then we've got the ball. It's the same thing where Saucedo steps up and there seems to be a plan. I'm going to drive this in low, but Panama have 3 guys defending that edge of that 6-yard box, so there's no way through. But they try it anyway.
Yeah, and even that's a good. I like that analogy because there's another one that you pointed out. I think there was a free kick in the first half.
Yes,
and it's there's definitely a little bit of trickery because I forget who it is, but they run up and
De La Torre and Saucedo standing over.
And I think it's Saucedo, forgive me, because it could be either one, but I think it's Saucedo who ends up hitting it well over and well wide. But De La Torre does this thing where he runs up and then stops and is definitely trying to sell it as though oh shoot, I wasn't supposed to go yet.
Right.
To try to sell the wall a little bit. And then the kicker comes through. But even then it's kind of good, and then it goes 40 yards wide. Yeah. So it's oh, okay, well that play didn't really work.
It was 35 at most.
Yeah, okay. My mistake. I apologize. But if I want to go back to positives, I'll say I really did enjoy Ebobisse. I'm going to go with Ebobisse because we've been told that by a listener. But I liked his running. I liked that he was one of the few players, it seemed who was really, really desperate to get a goal. Everybody else was kind of again in that I don't want to make the other mistake mode, and Ebobisse seemed like he was the one who was the most likely to want the ball, to get the ball, to demand the ball, and then to try to make something happen.
Yeah, and he could make something happen against Haiti or St. Kitts. One final positive, weirdly, I want to say is if you watch the last, say, 7 minutes of this game, you'll know that Panama really did try to run the clock down. There is definitely some talk of us being, quote, CONCACAF'd, right? A couple of people on Twitter mentioned that because Panama wasted a lot of time by going down, holding a leg, having fake cramps and pretending to be injured. And normally that can just get really frustrating and, we throw our hands up but we don't really do anything about it. This team the US team showed no mercy. There was even one where the Panama keeper tried to throw the ball out because a player was down, quote, injured. Instead, we just collected the ball and sent it straight back in.
Yeah, and then I think as you pointed out, there were 2 players down at that point. One of them hops up right away and tries to run and defend. Yeah.
Which is the way to do it, right? Don't fall for it. And also if they're going to, you can almost call them out. But the way that guy got back up, he was definitely not hurt.
Yeah. Well, I think he, then he goes back to, because then it goes out of play. I think it's out for another goal kick. Or no, excuse me. Then it goes back to the goalkeeper. He catches it. And again, this time really does throw it out of bounds. And then that player goes down he has a hurt shoulder. The other player has cramp. They figure it out. About 3 minutes go by. And then it's a U.S. throw. You would customarily have to throw it back to the team because you're trying to be good sportsmen. Nope. U.S. kept that ball.
They were very serious about we're going for this. We're not worried. We're not going to be CONCACAF.
You're right.
So I mean, obviously it didn't work out because we ended up losing, but at least they didn't fold and fall.
You're playing by the other team's rules at that point, and that's something the U.S. doesn't always do.
So I guess that's the best positive.
Yeah,
we've got there.
We'll take it. Yeah.
So hopefully things go a lot better. Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern, Univision Deportes. Also on Facebook Live via the CONCACAF channel, USA versus Haiti. We will have a review of that game. Hopefully we'll get to talk about some US goals. Maybe Sabi will light it up. Maybe Coy Craft will start banging some goals in.
Sounds good to me.
Before we move on, we should let our listeners know that today's episode of the Total Soccer Show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek has come along and created an amazing app and website that makes it easier than ever for fans to buy and sell tickets.
That's the key word, easy, because everything about SeatGeek is designed to make life easier for sports and music fans. SeatGeek does all the price comparison for you by searching multiple ticket sites and ensuring that you get the best possible deal.
And usually right about now, I'll open the app up on my phone because, I've got the SeatGeek app. I look around to see what tickets are available. I left my phone at home today.
Oh, no.
It's the first time I've ever done that. But I did open up my laptop earlier and I went to SeatGeek.com. It's also a website, of course. I looked around for some tickets. I saw MLS is coming. DC United are hosting Sporting KC 2 Saturdays from now. Tickets are available via SeatGeek. And I don't know if you know about this, there's a SeatGeek MLS partnership. I think SeatGeek is the official ticketing partner of MLS. So you can have a 360-degree view of the stadium before you buy your tickets.
So you know exactly what you're going to be seeing?
Yeah, but I didn't want a 360-degree view of RFK Stadium. I already know what it looks like.
Beautiful, picturesque RFK. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
I'm sure it was lovely in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, I looked up a comedian who I'm just getting familiar with. Billy Wayne Davis is his name. He's a Tennessee comedian, currently performing, I think, in Portland. So if you're in Portland,
Wayne Davis.
Yeah, he's been on Conan and some other late night shows, but he's very funny. So you should watch him. And then if you're in Portland or that area, you should go to SeatGeek and get tickets for Mr. Davis.
And if you want to go to either of these events, you can get a $20 rebate on your purchase of DC United tickets or Billy Wayne Davis tickets or any other tickets you can find on SeatGeek. Here's how you do it. You download the SeatGeek app. You go to the settings tab. You click add a promo code. You enter the promo code TSS. SeatGeek will then send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. If you're buying something that's $30, you're getting that for $10 in the end. If you're buying something for $20, how's the math work, Taylor?
Zero.
You get it for zero. Yeah, $20 rebate.
If you want that zero, then download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today.
So I mentioned a couple of times that the US v Panama game was available via Facebook Live, right, on the CONCACAF channel. We are having a mini revolution of games being broadcast via Facebook Live because this was also the first weekend of Liga MX or Liga MX. I never know which one.
It's like MX, I think.
MX. This is a third pronunciation.
I believe that's like the kind of correct one. I could be wrong.
Okay, we must have a listener who could tell us if we're doing it right or wrong. At Total Soccer Show, please let us know.
All right.
Univision Deportes broadcast the Chivas versus Club America game on Facebook Live this past Saturday night. I'd made a commitment to watch that. Turns out I wasn't able to do that. I was helping a friend move house, and I couldn't find it afterwards. But we DVR'd it here in the office. We got a good look, and there was some at the highlights, and there was some exciting action.
Yeah, I mean, there was a red card, there was a goal, there was a coach tackling a player, theoretically. Yeah. So where should we start?
Let's start with the goal.
Okay.
Specifically, the way that the penalty kick was won. It finished 1-0 to Chivas.
Yep.
Alan Pulido, who I'm sure we know from the Mexican national team. I'm trying to come up with a name for this move. He gets tackled by Aguilar, right, the Club America defender. He gets fouled by Aguilar.
Yeah.
He essentially does like a right foot, left foot shimmy, and Aguilar he's just massively confused and then just hacks at him.
Yeah, it's a very like basic like curver almost like approach. Yeah, it's like the basic moves that you learn when you're
in curver coaching.
Yeah. And it's basically just like you kind of like feint a little bit to the right, then you take it with your right instep, then you pass it forward with your left, and it's designed to like off-put the defender, make them kind of step the wrong way, and that's exactly what happens. He steps the wrong way, and then he plows right into him. And
then Zalvidar steps up, takes the penalty kick. It is 1-0 Chivas. Then in the second half, Club America go a man down.
Yep.
And we saw this first, right? His name is, Samudio? Gets sent off, the number 6 for Club America. Straight red card the first time I saw this, right? It looks like he absolutely stamps on Chivas Sanchez.
Right.
See the replay, I think he's hard done by.
I think he is, and it's definitely like he does it right in front of the sideline official, right in front of all the Chivas fans. So I think like maybe there's a little bit of influence there. But basically what happens is he's trying to get his footing again. And was it Sanchez you said?
Yeah, 17.
Chivas player. He steps on him a little bit, but that's because Sanchez has slid through. And then he goes off and he tries to get the ball.
Yeah.
And it looks, when we first watched it, we thought, oh, there's like 2 or 3 stamps in there. That's what happens. He leaves a foot in, he actively tries to stamp on him again.
And the final one looks like a proper retaliatory, like
reaching back. Yeah, exactly. And in reality, not there. He definitely steps on him, so you can make an argument
but that's part of the tangle, right? Because Sanchez is like slid in on him, so it's part of the tangle of legs.
I guess the only thing you could say is that like he doesn't necessarily make that like I'm sure you've had that moment where you like have a tangle, or maybe you accidentally step on a person and you do that sort of like, oh sorry, like didn't mean to do that, like are you okay? And instead it definitely like kind of leaves that foot there.
To be fair, he was playing in the Super Classico, so you kind of have to be more like leave the foot there, win the ball, as opposed to sorry.
But I'm inclined to say that it's actually once he takes like the next time he steps on the guy with his right foot, takes a step with his left, and then when he puts his right foot down again, it does look like he has stamped on the guy again.
Yes.
And in reality, what he's done is just barely avoided Sanchez's knee. But if you're the sideline official, it kind of looks like he's stamped. Maybe if you're the referee as well, it looks like that as well. So maybe both of them think, oh, he stamped on him. The crowd obviously thinks that. So the red card comes out, much to the chagrin of the entire America team,
Yep.
who let the official know.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
At least this led to your favourite moment of the broadcast.
Oh, what, the tackle?
No, the Smurfs.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, I posted it on Instagram. But I guess there was like some partnership between Univision Deportes and I guess the new Smurfs movie, which is happening.
Remember the name of it, sorry.
Smurfs, I don't know, something Savages or something weird.
Smurfs 2 Electric Blue Galoo.
It's sad to me that I know this. There has already been a Smurfs 2. I'm pretty sure this is the third Smurfs movie. Either way, it was some sort of sponsored partnership because when that red card comes out, the Smurfs come out and they do this whole thing where like a ball hits another Smurf and then another Smurf issues a red card. So it's clearly like red card brought to you by Smurfs.
Yeah, it made me realize Univision Deportes is the leader in sort of integrated advertising into the game. I feel like NBC Sports, ESPN, Fox Sports 1 and 2 got to step it up. Get that integrated advertising.
And then it was really weird because later in the game, Gargamel came out and slide tackled Papa Smurf. Gargamel wearing a bright yellow tie. That did not happen. But
Le Volpe did tackle...
He sure did.
Who did Le Volpe tackle?
I think it was Sanchez again.
Yes, it was number 17 again. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think play was already dead, right? Hadn't it been called? But Le Volpe steps out. He's on the field protesting something, and as Sanchez is trying to dribble away, Le Volpe just steps in and tackles him, and Sanchez goes down. And the only reason I think this is worth talking about is my favourite moment is when people complain at Le Volpe for what he's clearly done, which is be way outside of his technical area and on the field, tripped over an opposition player. He points at the ball.
Okay,
ref, I got the ball.
I'm going to take issue with the way you've categorized this, the way you've described this, because what I see happen is a Club America player goes down and stays down.
Yes.
And I think he is frustrated that the referee hasn't called sooner because this player is down. Chivas have the ball, so you could call it there, give him a drop ball, whatever.
Yeah.
But instead he lets play continue a little bit. So I think that's why he's kind of coming out. And then the referee blows the whistle.
He's not allowed outside of his technical area, right?
So
he's definitely not supposed to be on the field.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, he definitely shouldn't be on the field. But at that point, the whistle goes. And I really do think he doesn't see the player because that player, Sanchez, is trying to keep the ball in bounds and does so and saves it, but he takes like a big touch ahead of him because he is away. Like, if that whistle doesn't go, he is definitely away. But I think...
It's a professional foul from Liverpool.
Well, no, I think he hears the whistle and thinks play is dead, and all of a sudden the ball's at his feet, and he's like, oh, and puts his instep to the ball, which happens to send Sanchez flying.
That's very generous.
I don't think he knows that Sanchez is even there. I think he sees the ball, and it's like, oh, I'll put my foot on the ball, and I'll talk to the ref, and the player goes flying through, and I think that's why he's like, what? The ball was here. I didn't do anything. Like, what do you want from me?
Either way, it finishes 1-0 to Chivas de Guadalajara, is I believe how we pronounce this, over Club America. Big win in the Super Clasico. One final guy I want to talk about is a guy who's in the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, Orbelin Pineda. He's the number 7 the number 7 for Chivas. We knew he was kind of an exciting player. We'd heard tell of him. He plays for the Mexican national team. He's only, 20? We do got good glimpses of him in this game, and I think we've got good reason to be half excited to watch him and half terrified for when we have to play against him in the future for probably the next 10, 12 years.
And may already have. I can't remember. But I will say that he's definitely an exciting player. I think was last season, and it clearly is this season as well, because we saw him doing like good, consistent link-up play in the midfield, but also riding challenges, maybe getting a little bit physical at times, creating opportunities. He was definitely fun to watch.
Oh, let's hope we're not having to say that sort of in, say, June.
Yeah.
Or more likely during the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
He might be a Gold Cup player.
We shall see.
Oh, okay. Speaking of exciting young players, we have 5 updates from the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network to share with our listeners today. If you're unaware, this is part of how we support the show. We ask people to subscribe at totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. You send us a monthly amount. You join the TSS Scouting Network. We send you a young player to scout, keep an eye on him or her, and then you send us reports.
Alrighty.
So who's up first today, Tyler? Which player?
Up first is John Crispin, scouting Pakami Malambi, the 19-year-old South African midfielder for Bidvest Wits. I'm going to say it's like a Belgian-Dutch sort of pronunciation. Who knows? Since coming back from a knee injury, and I believe he's the one who had like the tendon from his brother.
Yes, I forgot about this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, since coming back from that knee injury...
That's a family commitment.
Pac-Man has gotten 3 goals and 3 assists in 4 games. His Bidvest Wits side also won all 4 of those games and are now top of the table in South Africa.
Hang on then, how much credit does his brother get for 3 goals and 3 assists?
I guess we'll find out.
Does he get like 1 goal and 1 assist total?
Well, we'll find out because Pakamani was rewarded with a new contract through 2021, so maybe he gets part of that, or at least like his knee tendon gets part of that. There is still some interest, though, from Galatasaray and Benfica. I think John mentioned Manchester United in there, but I think that was more wishful thinking than anything else. Pakami was called up by South Africa for the U20 African Cup of Nations, but Gavin Hunt, his club coach, declared that he would not be released as he is considered too important to his club.
So this feels like a name that you're going to be hearing a lot more about in a couple of years. This could be one of the TSS Scouting Network success stories. Because you'll have this great story behind him, and then he's playing in South Africa, so it's not maybe as high profile. But then suddenly he'll be banging in goals for Galatasaray, Manchester United, Benfica, maybe all of the above.
All of the above, yeah, all at once.
He'll have a nomadic career. Up next, Christian Bukel is scouting Paxton Pomykal, the 17-year-old American midfielder for FC Dallas. Oh, if he's a youngster for FC Dallas, then you know he's good. The young homegrown player for FC Dallas has gotten decent minutes this pre-season, says Christian, including scoring 2 goals in a win over SMU, Southern Methodist University.
I figured you wouldn't know.
I only know because Cameron, our friend, used to play for SMU, right? And Shellis Heinemann coached at SMU.
Maybe that's the connection there.
I've also been here 11 years.
Also that.
And I do a soccer show, I don't know if you know. He was the youngest player on the field for FC Dallas and noted as the standout of the game. Christian notes that he looks forward to Paxton making his senior competitive debut and guesses that it will probably come in a US Open Cup match. Yeah, I recently assigned Jesus Ferreira to Jose. And I'm really excited about these Dallas youngsters that we might see some this year. Apparently, they've been tearing it up in preseason.
There are several of them. Up next is Jillian Avalon scouting Jack Storr, the 19-year-old English forward for Birmingham City.
Hey.
According to Jillian, Zola has played Baby Jack.
I forgot Gianfranco Zola was Birmingham manager. Yeah, all right.
In Birmingham's home loss to QPR, Zola brought on the young attacker with the side down 3-0 with 8 minutes to play. Baby Jack managed to get a yellow card within 5 minutes, though it wasn't a red, which Jillian is considering a positive development since I believe last time he played, he got a red.
Yep, against Wolves.
Yep.
So he's doing better, I guess?
Sure.
And up next, Michael Fisk is scouting Andreas Christensen, the 20-year-old Danish centre-back, plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach. Michael says it's been a pretty rough week for Andreas Christensen. His side fell 1-0 to Fiorentina in the Europa League on Thursday and then 2-1 to Rasenballsport Leipzig on Sunday. Michael observes that Andreas seems to have been instructed to step more often, but his game is more based on patience and waiting for the prime moment to defend. He has therefore started to concede far more clear-cut chances, which obviously isn't ideal for a team that has been struggling of late. I wonder what Fabian Johnson has to say about all this.
And finally, Ryan Marzak scouting Pione Sisto, the 22-year-old Danish winger for Celta Vigo. Celta Vigo beat Osasuna 3-0 on Sunday, with the first goal coming from Pione.
Hey.
It's a good goal that comes off of a fantastic back heel from Giuseppe Rossi. So I watched this. I would say it's like a double back heel. So one is like a back heel flick, and then one is just like a no-look flick.
From Giuseppe Rossi?
Yeah, it's well done. It's good link-up play. Vigo play Shakhtar Donetsk in the second leg of the Europa League round of 32, trailing 1-0 from the first leg, and Ryan is hoping that Pione will help his side overturn that deficit.
Ooh, all right. So we got some TSS Scout Network players in the Europa League. If you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, you can do so at totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. Sign up for a monthly subscription, and then we will send you a promising young player to scout. We won't do it immediately because it's kind of a high-volume operation at this point, the Scouting Network. There are a lot of players in there. But if you are at all impatient, we are not at all offended. If you email us, contact@totalsoccershow.com, put in the subject line, itchy feet, let us know that you want your player. I will get it to you as soon as is possible. I promise.
Any other business then, Mr. Grove?
You can buy Total Soccer Show scarves via Roughneck Scarves at totalsoccershow.com/shop. You can also buy Total Soccer Show t-shirts via Who Are You Designs, also at totalsoccershow.com/shop. Go check out our wares.
And if you don't want to purchase anything but you want to help the show, you can also just download the SeatGeek app and do the promo code.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to buy anything, but you could just register that you've used the promo code.
Yeah, so download the SeatGeek app to your iPhone, your Android. I'm not sure there are any other types of phones available these days. Is BlackBerry still around?
Sure,
maybe. Click the settings tab, add TSS as the promo code. Then SeatGeek will know that you downloaded the app because we told you about it, and that puts us in good standing with our advertisers, helps us to keep the show going.
Indeed.
All right, Taylor, we will be back tomorrow. We may or may not be able to do a review of USA v Haiti. It depends what the time of day is and what time our practice session starts. But until then, I want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again tomorrow.
You gotta slice it.